Hey guys, welcome back to Mummy's Love. You're once again with Shahnaz today on another video on fertility and IVF. Thank you very much for the positive and overwhelming response to my IVF tips and IVF fears and this video. In case you're new to this channel and you haven't seen that, I'm going to go ahead and link those above for you. Welcome to my channel and welcome to the world of fertility and parenting. Just when I felt that I had done enough talking about IVF, one of my subscribers wrote me a question about embryo transfer, and that got my mind ticking. I realized there was something very important and, perhaps the most important phase of the entire IVF process. So I decided to share my experiences and my knowledge on embryo transfer. The success of any IVF cycle does not purely rest on the quality of embryos that are being implanted back into your womb, but majorly on how the physician does it. The physician has to delicately place the embryos back into the endometrium cavity, just at the right place, without causing any kind of trauma or harm to the endometrium layer. Hence, the importance of a successful embryo transfer cannot be overstated. Embryo transfer is done with the help of an ultrasound, which helps the doctor get to the right part of your endometrium cavity. For those who are not sure what exactly is the process before the embryo transfer, here's a quick briefing. The woman or the recipient is stimulated by giving injectable hormones for a period of about 10 days or so to ensure that the follicles grow the right size. Once we have enough number of follicles and just the right size, follicles are retrieved using simple sedation process and vacuuming or kind of suctioning the follicles from the ovaries, and are technically checked for growth for almost 3 to 5 days, and thereafter the best embryos are picked up for implantation, and just depending on how much number of eggs the doctor feels right to implant are being implanted back into the woman's body. So this is a little briefing on how the entire IVF process works, and now I'm going to talk about how exactly the embryo transfer worked and what was my personal experience and what is it I did after the embryo transfer process. Embryo transfer is a lot like pap smear, and it does not require any sedation. It's a very simple procedure which is generally done when a woman's body is all ready to receive an embryo, especially the endometrium layer reaches the right thickness for the embryo to be implanted. It is done with the help of an ultrasound, and it is important that the bladder be completely full. That helps the sonographist actually see the catheter going in the right place, gives a better visualization of the uterus and the catheter, and ensures that entire process is done extremely smoothly without causing any damage or trauma to the endometrium layer. Another reason why doctors would want to do the full bladder is in case of women who have anteverted uterus or uterus which is tipped up, to bring it to a more accommodating level so that the catheter passes through it without much difficulty. A very fine catheter is usually passed through your cervical opening to the right in the center of your uterine cavity. This entire procedure is done with the help of an ultrasound machine that actually guides the physician to the right part of your endometrium layer where these embryos are released. When the catheter tip reaches the right part of the endometrium lining, these embryos are released and the catheter is very gradually removed from the uterine cavity and are normally checked later on in case any embryos are left which is pretty uncommon, but it's just for a satisfaction reason. The physician do check it under the microscope to see that if any embryos have been left out to be transferred. Now the real trick here is putting the embryos at the right part of your endometrium layer. Generally, the middle part of your endometrium layer is considered to be the best part for embryo implantation. I remember my embryo transfer very clearly. I was taken onto an operation theatre and I was laid on the operating table, and the doctor inserted the catheter through my uterine cavity, and I experienced slight discomfort, and that was majorly because of the bladder that was overly full. And just when they reached the right place and they were about to release the embryos into the endometrium lining, they actually showed me the visualization on another ultrasound monitor, and it was interesting to see that exactly right above or after, you can say, the embryos, they had put a silver highlighter, so I could see that highlighter. And I asked my doctor if those were the embryos. He said no, that's a highlighter, just that tells us that the embryos have been properly injected or released into the endometrium layer. And the entire procedure hardly took about 5 to 7 minutes. What was really important in the entire procedure is that the doctors had actually done a dry run on me much before, because in some cases the doctors might have trouble reaching to the right part of the cervix or getting through the cervix, and they end up stretching the cervix at that point in time, which can completely ruin your cycle. So my doctors, as a safe precaution, did a dry catheter run on me approximately before they even started stimulating me on hormones. So I think that was really helpful, and that helped make the process very smooth and a lot faster, and that definitely was one reason why it became a success. So the entire procedure did not take more than 10 minutes, and I actually immediately got up right after the process, and I was asked to be seated in a wheelchair, but I technically stood up for a minute and a half, because I read somewhere that you shouldn't just lie down right away. So I stood up for about a minute, and then I was kind of seated on a wheelchair and taken back to rest for about 2 to 3 hours. And after resting for about 3 hours or so, I was just asked to continue with my normal routine activities, but just to make sure that I do not do any kind of strenuous activity, and I keep it really moderate and gentle, but just continue doing my usual activities and having the medications that I was supposed to take, especially the progesterone suppositories, and I remember taking up some other medicines like Argigest and folic acid and a few more that were important catalysts in the entire implantation process. So we just continued doing what we were regularly doing and having the medications we were advised to take. And I did not really eat any fat foods like what I saw and what I heard people talk about, like pineapple and God knows what all. But and in fact, I read a lot about and I heard a lot about pineapple, that you should have like the center of the pineapple, it helps in implantation. And my doctor particularly told me not to have anything like that, because it could just cause you contractions. So strictly stick to what your doctor is recommending you. Don't go off board, because your entire success is kind of dependent on how well your body responds to the entire implantation process. Very important part of post-implantation process is keeping it positive and having faith and praying that it's going to work, because I know it certainly takes more than just finances and just physical effort or physical pain to go through an IVF cycle. Your embryo needs about 2 to 3 days for implantation. If you've had a blastocyst transfer, which is a day 5 fertilized embryo, we would generally implant in the uterine cavity in about 1 to 3 days. And the other one, if it's like a 3-day embryo transfer, then it should normally take about 3 to 5 days for it to completely hatch and implant and stick itself to the endometrium layer. And it'll start taking its nutrition from there. And right on the 14th day from your day of transfer, you'll be called back to the clinic to test for your pregnancy. I know a lot of viewers will question that if I noticed any kind of pregnancy symptoms during those 13 or 14 days period. I did not really notice any kind of pregnancy symptoms, just that I didn't feel bloated, which I usually would in case I'm about to get my periods and in case the cycle does not work. And I was kind of picking on some smell or smell of gas or the LPG which you have at home quite often, but I couldn't really at that point in time relate that to a pregnancy symptom. So guys, this was pretty much it about my experience on the embryo transfer process. Remember, there is nothing special that you need to do from your own end to make sure that it works. It eventually works well if your physician has a good hand, and that is the reason I always tell you to go to people who have a high success rate. So keep that in mind all the time when you're going in for any fertility treatment, be it IUI or be it IVF. Choosing the right physician and the right fertility clinic will make a world of difference to your fertility journey and experience. So guys, this is pretty much it on the embryo transfer process, and I will be really glad to take on more questions from you. That also gives me ideas on what else that I can talk about in IVF, because I'm sure there are many more things that you want to learn or hear about. So I will be really happy if you come up with interesting questions that I can answer for you, and let me know what else you want me to talk about. I'll be so glad if I can be of any help or if I can provide any information that you require at the moment. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you get notified on more such videos that will be coming soon, and hit the like button if you appreciate the information that is being shared. I will shortly see you again. Till then, you have a wonderful day. Take care of yourself. Much love. Bye-bye.